There's a part of me that's hurt and sad, and instead of saying, hey, I'm going to treat you with compassion and really understand and sit with you because it's me, instead I say, I want you to be gone. I want you to not exist. Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. So in this video, I'm gonna answer another question from the lovely audience. Let me know if you guys like this format. I really enjoy it. It gives me a way to really focus in on all the things I'm learning as I wanna share them with you all. This one is from Nitika Nikki, and she asks, how to stop labeling events in your life as good or bad and be present. So I also took some notes on this question. What really came up for me was the assumption that life doesn't include events that are in fact good and bad, because actually they very much do. One of the big processes that I had during the in-person retreat I did in the program that I'm involved in, focused on healing trauma, was actually around the divine law and when it is transgressed, and how each of us know and we're born with an understanding of when something is right and wrong. And so as a kid, as a baby, as a child, we know, and we know in our spirit when something happens and it's right or it's wrong. And so when the divine law, when that is transgressed and someone does something to you that is not right, it is very important that we acknowledge that something wrong did happen. The man was having a process around this question where he saw his dad behaving in a way that truly was not right. And, it was difficult for him to reconcile because of his own personal experience. And Thomas said to the group, this is not right. And literally it was like a ripple echoed throughout the entire group. I found some stuff from my own childhood being rattled. It was very beautiful. I cried for a very long time. And so when I hear you say whether or not you label events as good or bad, what I want to say is, no, you should label events as good or bad, And I've been reading a lot of Abraham Hicks lately. And the gist of Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction is that we're in this world of contrast, and the contrast allows us to better focus on the things we want. So it's not that everything in life is the same, that it's all equal, and that we even prefer everything to be the same. There are some things that we like and don't like, and there are things that are good and bad. And I think the challenge comes when some people, what is good and bad is not because of any inherent transgression of divine law, but because they just don't have a personal preference. It's like, oh, I like red versus I like blue. And it's like, well, you're wrong. And it's like, no, it's just a preference. Versus when it's something related to my divine rights, my human rights, my civil rights, my ability to become and belong, to be free in my life and to make my own choices. When something comes that gets in the way of that, that is actually not right. And it should be named and it should be called out as such. So I just want to affirm that if you find yourself in situations, for yourself whether or not it's a matter of preference, oh, I simply don't prefer this, simply don't like this. If I could have the chance to live my life, this isn't something I would include, and that's fine. And actually other people can do that if that's their choice and that's their journey. For me, I'm just not interested. Versus someone is being hurt, I am being hurt, something is happening that is a transgression and needs to be called out as such. I also wanted to mention the book Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, because I think he does a really good job in that book of explaining the way things are always happening in our lives. There's constant phenomena just happening all the time, constant vibrations, constant experiences. And there's some that we're able to just experience and they flow through us. He uses the phrase letting it go. And imagine if you were driving down the highway, there's cars passing by, there's trees passing by, and those are the things that you just see and you let them go. They don't stay lodged in you. And then there's other experiences. He gives this example of say you are driving, you see your ex's or your current partner's car in the very particular car, and you see what you believe to be their car, and you see that there's someone else in the car with them, because it's actually triggering a fear of, is my partner cheating on me? Can I trust them? Etc., etc. Seeing that car, even though we don't even know if that's really the person's car, that stays. And that's the kind of stuff that we can't let go. And so a lot of suffering comes from having all of these things in our life from other people's life that we've taken on as our own. And instead of simply letting it go, we hold on. And we hold on because it's not okay that it exists. It's not okay that things have happened. And that's also been a huge, huge part of my healing journey. We have all these feelings that just happen because of experiences in our life. When we're young, they're very intense, and so we don't have the capacity to feel them all. And it's only later, as we have more space and room and maturity, we can actually remember and feel and let those things go as adults. But what I'm finding is that feeling the feeling doesn't change what happened. And I think that's the challenge, is that when we've had bad things happen to us or other people we love, people we care about, we want it to be different. It's actually not acceptable that things things are the way they are, that things have been the way they have been because we feel like it should have been different because it wasn't right. And what I found is that when going back to these challenges from my early childhood, what I'm really crying about is, of course, I'm feeling the feelings of sadness and anger and fear tied to the actual experience. But really what I'm feeling is like, this shouldn't have happened. Like, this actually should not have happened. It makes me angry and it makes me sad that it happened at all. It makes me angry and it makes me sad that as an adult I'm having to deal with it. I have all of this like frustration against the reality of life, and that doesn't change that it did happen, which is really annoying because it seems like it should, right? But it doesn't. And feeling that frustration, feeling that anger, feeling that sadness and that fear, that is what has actually allowed me to release my emotional and energetic tie to those moments from earlier in my life. Because what I find is that when I feel uncomfortable feelings, I want to get rid of them. I don't want them to be on my body. I don't want to experience them. I want them to be gone. And sometimes I'll feel the feeling because I want it to be gone. And what I'm doing when I do that is there's a part of me that's hurt and sad. And instead of saying, hey, I'm going to treat you with compassion and really understand and sit with you because it's me, instead I say, I want you to be gone. I want you to not exist, which then further re-traumatizes young me. And so to instead just say like, yeah, things sucked, things were bad things happened, wrong things happened, and I'm gonna feel how much I hate the truth of that. That is actually what allows me to catch up to this current moment. Because in my current moment, I live a really blessed life. And I think a lot of people in our current moment, if we were to look around without all of the filters that we put on life, we would see that things are actually very beautiful, that we're very blessed, that we're healthy, that we're resourced, that we have beautiful communities and friends and family and support and talents and gifts and skills and opportunities, like all of these things that are really blessing us. But it's hard when we see these things, but we think, but it would be different if this thing hadn't happened, or whatever story we tell ourselves, because a part of us is still in the past. As I'm like updating my nervous system and bringing more of myself online and releasing more of that old energy, more of me is just here in this moment. And I'm realizing more and more like, I don't actually know what's gonna happen next. Like, I have my plans, I have my visions, my hopes and my dreams, but actually all of life is happening right now in this moment. It's the fear of things being like how they were in the past and having to repeat past difficult experiences that keeps personally me stuck from doing something different or being fully engaged in the moment. And it's the hope, it's the dream of like, things will be better, things will be different than how they are now when this, that, or the third thing happens in the future. And all that does is similarly keep me from being here, because what I'm really saying is that here is too hard. And that was a big thing that was emphasized during this training I just did, this Timeless Wisdom training with Thomas Hubel, was that when now is too difficult, it makes sense to leave. It makes sense to withdraw in. It makes sense to daydream, to think about the past or the future or something else if this moment is too hard to be in. So when we think about the different things our body does to cope with being in really, really challenging situations, so freezing, numbing, absencing, all the things to not feel and be here and be connected, those aren't bad things to shame and to get rid of. Those are good things to be grateful for. And I know for me, when I think about the ways I show up in relationships and the extent to which I'm able to trust or not trust somebody, and the gap that I create between myself and someone else because that's the safe thing to do, I really gave myself a hard time about that because I was like, you should want to connect, you should be able to connect. And I really prioritize connecting at all costs, essentially. And what I really learned this weekend was like, there's such wisdom and there's such intelligence to honoring our bodies, and it's for a good reason. And when I've tried to override that and connect anyway, I've gotten hurt because there was a wisdom to keeping that safety, because that safety was speaking to things that I wasn't ready to handle yet. And by overriding it, I ended up repeating those same experiences. So I think when it comes to being present, we need to honor that if things are too much, the right choice isn't to be present. The right choice is actually to absence. It actually is to freeze. It's to actually protect yourself. And your body will do that anyway because it's so intelligent. And when we have situations, when we say, this is bad, that is us honoring our divine, true, infinite spirit and soul and loving and respecting ourselves. It's not a thing to just see everything as neutral and just be happy in the world and blah, blah, blah. Like, for me, I think no. I think We know in our heart when something is good and when something is bad. And it's important for us to know that we deserve good things. We don't deserve bad things. And if we find ourselves in situations where we cannot handle those situations, it's okay to escape and to leave however we can. And then in our real world, to resource ourselves. So if the actual physical situation isn't aligned, we're able to leave that too. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you for asking the question. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Patreon people, for your support. And if you would like a one-on-one with me to either do some coaching or to ask a question more privately, you can check the description box. I'll see you on the next video.